it was just such a crazy thing to see. Like, this is real organized crime happening in front of all of us, right on the feeder of 59.
Hey, welcome to the Elijah Rising podcast, where we discuss the myths, misconceptions, and most asked questions about sex trafficking. And today, I'm so honored to be joined on the podcast by Sam Hernandez, our mobilization director. Sam and I work closely together on all sorts of things, speaking engagements, but Sam's one of our most brilliant creative minds here at Elijah Rising, and one of our first employees. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a second.
Fun thing is, I actually begged Adam and Micah for a job when I was like 21, 22, fresh out of college. I have no memory of it, but apparently I walked up to Adam and
I have memories.
And what did I say? I said,
I want to work for Elijah Rising. Here's my plan.
Here's my name. My name is Sam Hernandez, and I want to end sex trafficking. My name was Sam Smith then.
That's true. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So on
Long history.
on today's episode of the podcast, this is the second part in a series where we're asking the question, how does sex trafficking work? And so on the previous episode, we discussed how it works specifically in the cantina model, but today we're going to talk about how it works in the brothel model, specifically illicit massage businesses. And so the reason why Sam is on the podcast to discuss this today is because this is really how Sam got into the work.
Yeah, it's kind of my origin story of how I got into here, and then why I ended up begging Elijah Rising for a job.
Yeah, that's right. So why don't we just dive in? Sam, how did you start doing brothel intervention? What did that look like?
Absolutely. So I, like probably all of you sitting at home listening to this, I found out about sex trafficking, and the first response is outrage, and and some of us, this responsibility, like I have to do something.
Yeah, got to do it. Yeah.
I thought that it was happening in other countries, specifically Southeast Asia, and I thought maybe I'm never going to be able to do anything. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not, all these things that I thought was like a prerequisite to really address this issue. Right. Then a friend went on a van tour. So I actually didn't go on a van tour. My first van tour was helping lead one.
What?
Where I took over while Beth was leading a tour, and I was like, "This is the thing. I know this." Myself, just being myself. And my friend took a van tour. Her name's Jen Fox. She's amazing. She has also amazing nail polish company called Death Valley Nails. She's a great person.
Plug.
So she told me about these brothels. She says they exist here. I saw them. Oh my gosh, do you want to go? And so it started out as like a team of 15 people who were like, yeah, let's get together and do outreach. And it ended up just being me and Jen. And every single week, about 2 to 3 times a week, me and her would go to Angela Day Spa, formerly known as 5818 Southwest Freeway, our original headquarters.
That's right.
And then Paradise Spa. And it was crazy because you have this idea that it's going to be this closed off, need a password, behind closed doors situation. It wasn't. I walked up. I remember the first day I went, I literally prayed that the door would be locked because I was so afraid.
Nervous about going in.
I was so afraid. Yeah. I was so scared, but I had people behind me. So I was like, I have to show off that I'm like tough. I'm like strong and, So the door opens and I'm like, crap, I have to actually go inside. But you walk inside and I saw this. So specifically Paradise Spa was a place that was really close to my heart. That and Angela Spa. I walk in, it's this like circular like waiting room with an ATM, and they had some soft music and a couch and a tiny window. Cameras outside, side, they know everybody who's walking in. They saw us walking in, they see 2 girls, 20-year-old girls walking in, and they're not interested. We're not their clientele.
Not the average clientele.
No.
Right.
So they came out and, they didn't come out. We kept going. We would bring everything. We'd bring cookies. We'd bring coffee. We found out that they really enjoyed this specific group of women really enjoyed black coffee. So we'd bring carafes of coffee and we'd sit down and just wait for them to come out and have coffee with us. And it was very interesting because we went in the middle of the day. In the afternoon, there weren't a lot of customers there. If there were customers, we left them alone, or we would wait till the customers would leave because they kind of drive up, go inside the waiting room, pick out which woman they want, go in the back, do that, come out and leave. Usually only took 15, 30 minutes. And over time, I learned that they were from Thailand. So I learned the most embarrassing small vocabulary of Thai. And they would laugh at me when I go, Sawati Dombai and Sawati Sabai Di Mai. If there's anyone who speaks Thai out there, I'm so sorry. But they would laugh, and it was this little connection. Yeah. And eventually we got to the point where we would just sit and pray. Wow. And I would just beg the Holy Spirit. I would say, God, please just give me one word in English that they understand. And I'll never forget multiple times holding the hands of a woman in that place specifically and going, God, what's the word for this person? And every time, this one woman, I remember I said, I saw a baby. And I said, I would point up and I would say, God sees you like a child, like a baby. And she just began to weep. And then they would go bring out the women who were new or maybe brought from a different place. And they would say, hey, and I said like, hi, I'm like a person, like a spiritual person. I like pray for you. I acted like a fortune. I saw it in a movie once where, I was like, I'm just praying to Jesus. Yeah. And the next person, I heard the word diamond. And I said, God sees you like a diamond, like a precious jewel. And she would again weep. So they began to bring us the women and say, and tell them in Thai, like, close your eyes. She's going to hold your hands. Wow. And of course it was this confusing thing because I'm like, wait, I want to help you get out. Yeah. I didn't know how to do that. But it was these really special moments of just connection, giving them a moment to feel human, to feel seen. Yeah. And that's when I started going to Angela Day Spa as well.
Which, just to be clear,
which is a whole web of things.
But those are just like 1 block away from each other.
Oh yeah, 1 block away. There was like 5 places on 1 block, which was the original Elijah Rising van tour. If you hadn't been on one, it was a very special era of the beginnings of Elijah Rising. Yeah, I think
there were 10 brothels, Asian massage brothels, in a 3-block radius.
Yes. And Angela Day Spa was one of them. And that's when I started getting involved with Elijah Rising because I was like, I'm doing this outreach. And I realized how accessible it was, specifically to the church. And I was like, churches could literally be here every single day. And by the way, I met these women and I said, do you know who Jesus is? And they didn't know who Jesus was. They'd never seen a Bible. We have unreached people groups in the midst, which was my secondary concern. My first concern was they're trafficked and they desperately need help.
Sure.
And so I started going to Angela Day Spa. Then I connected with Elijah Rising, found out that they had been talking about the landowner for a long time, saying, kind of letting people know that he was owning this land, that he was leasing to people who were using it for sex trafficking, and then knowingly leasing it to a business that was trafficking individuals. That's, in those days, I was really involved in that process, and we would go in there constantly. And one of the things we used to do was write letters to city council and to other elected officials and people who could make decisions. And we targeted that area specifically. Paradise was one of them, Jinza, 58, 18, all those different locations. And we met someone who knew the landlord of 5818 Southwest Freeway. And so we figured out who that person was. And then we started we contacted and said, hey, please stop. Do you know what's happening inside of your business? And he retaliated against us. Or at least he threatened to retaliate against us. No, he retaliated. He had a lawsuit.
Did. Yeah, I guess he did file a lawsuit.
Which, by the way, I hope that you know, as a 22-year-old who had just joined your staff, I was so disappointed that my name was not on the lawsuit. And I felt like less of a justice warrior. And that shows how immature and how little life I'd lived.
Well, as a 20-something-year-old, I was scared out of my mind.
You had a wife and a child. Yeah, it was a different situation.
Yeah, but you know what? The Lord really prevailed in that situation. And he stopped the lawsuit because he admitted it, that he was knowingly allowing a brothel to operate on his property. We presented him with the evidence, and
he was caught in a lie.
And then so he stopped the lawsuit. And then what did he do, Sam? You tell the rest of the story.
Well, then he shut down the operation, which we were specifically Jen, but myself, we were already in kind of close connection with the women that were working at this.
Right, because of the relationship building that you guys have been doing for a while.
So Jen gets a text, hey, this place is getting shut down by our landlord. We're going to be at this bar tonight if you want to come spend time with us. Not suggesting that this is what any of you do.
This is not what we do now.
100%. This is not what we do now. I only laugh because it was not wise, but I am grateful for the experience. So we get this text message. We go out to Sherlock's Pub on right by Highway 8 and Westheimer. Yeah. On Westheimer by Beltway 8.
Yeah, Beltway 8.
Where normal people go. And this man was with this group of 6 Thai women. and they were at a bar and they were just hanging out at the bar. He was buying them drinks and he was, when you look at someone and you just can feel like something is not right. This man, I could tell that he was just not a great person, not a trustworthy person. And he was very, very weary of why we were there. And there was also a 40-somethings Caucasian man with one of the women who was being trafficked on his lap. And he had insisted or communicated that he left his wife and family in a different state to come be with this woman, be a client of this person, this trafficked woman. And it was just a whole interest. So we were able to spend time and see kind of the way that they operated as a family. Right. And even in public. And there was people around. And I was like, nobody knows that this is a group of trafficked women, a lot of which, we kind of heard some of the stories about why they were there and that they have children in other countries. We don't know the full reasoning of force, fraud, and coercion that happened, but it was not... Anyway, it was just such an interesting situation. I actually got a picture of that trafficker. I pretended to take a selfie of myself. I switched my camera around. Still, do not suggest these things. But it was just such a crazy thing to see. Like, this is real organized crime happening in front of all of us, right on the feeder of 59, down the street from my Baptist college. Yeah. It was wild.
Yeah. So, we've seen a lot of success in this work, and you coming on board really took Elijah Rising to the next level, I think, in terms of intervention, and you really brought some organization to the intervention and some vision and some strategy. So let's talk about just like specifics real quick. Like,
yes.
How exactly does the illicit massage business work? Like, okay, if a consumer pulls up in the parking lot, you've kind of talked about this a little bit in your story, but they walk in, what do they see? What does it look like? And how are the women managed?
Yeah. And it's, so what we mainly see, and a lot of you listening, if you have any background in understanding this, or just you're aware person in your community, you might have already seen it. So you have a storefront, usually in a easily rentable space. So those little office parks, like even the internal office park buildings, those little strip malls of where there's lots of little places. I don't know if strip mall is the right term, but where places are being rented out, doctors' offices, massage parlors, things like this. So then they usually have some sort of open sign, and maybe the only information is a phone number. Now they have gotten more complex and they have looked more real. We've seen them as foot reflexology reflexology clinics. We've seen them as chiropractic offices, different things like that, especially to get around some licensing. But the more common stereotypical, and what we see a lot, is like a phone number and a door. And sometimes you walk up to the door, you try to open it. If you're not a male, the door is magnetically locked from the inside, or buzzed open. And even during we're in the middle of a global pandemic, quarantine's happening right now. They have remained open this entire time with just their open sign off. Customers call, they go and open the door for them when they enter, which is completely unsafe. Yeah. But they don't care about the safety of the women that they're trafficking. But so you walk in, there's usually a small lobby. Not always, but sometimes there's an ATM. If there's an ATM in the lobby, that's like, this is absolutely a brothel. Like, this is an illicit massage business, absolutely. And then there's some kind of window or door that leads to the rest of the place. That is where they're negotiating, where they're seeing who the person is. It's also I think a stop measure if there are any type of undercover police officers, things like that come in, where they can kind of create a barrier for the rest of the place so they can change, do some things. Right. And then once they get to the window, a customer will either say, I've seen it a couple of different ways. Sometimes they say, I want, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, and those are all different sex acts. Then they will pick a woman, whoever's there, take them back to the room and negotiate. Either sometimes they'll do a massage and then negotiate a sex act there. And then even further, many of the men will expect to negotiate a no condom deal. And online on the forums, they usually share that information. It's around usually $15 to $50 to include a no condom experience, which if you're meeting a quota for a trafficker,
maybe you take that risk to make more money.
Absolutely. And then that's it. That's how it works. And some of the women I've been inside of some of these illicit massage businesses or brothels, and where you see that they're sleeping in the back room. You see suitcases, or there's some where you see them being transported throughout the day. Neighbors will say, I see them coming and going, even as so much as doing outcalls.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to take a break in the podcast at this point. When we come back, we're just going to keep discussing kind of the way that we do intervention and some more stories about the illicit massage businesses. So see you in a minute.
Hey, everybody. I hope you are enjoying today's episode of the Elijah Rising podcast. Right now, I'm standing in the Elijah Rising store that sells goods that empower survivors of sex trafficking. All the items in this shop, the purchases support the employment as well as the restoration of women that are in our program. So please come visit us at 11th and Studewood or online at shop.elijahrising.org. And today, on your first purchase, we're going to offer you $10 off if you shop online using code PODCAST.
Hey, welcome back to the Elijah Rising podcast. So we're talking about the illicit massage business trade and the way that sex trafficking plays out in that business model in particular. And so we've really discussed the ins and outs, how it works, how it functions, how you first started getting into this work. But let's talk about solutions, though. Let's talk about how we, how the average, earlier you said, I realize that this is a way for the church to get involved. I realize that this is a way for people to make a difference, to do something active. So what does that look like? If somebody's listening, if somebody's watching this saying, hey, man, I want to make a difference in this specific way that trafficking is taking place, what do they do, Sam?
It's a hard question. No, it's an important question because it's a very complex. It's kind of like, I can't remember who said it. It's Einstein's like the more that you find out, the more that your circumference of knowledge goes, the more that you see that you know so little.
Don't know anything.
Really peeling back the layers of this thing, realizing when Backpage still existed, we would even see that some places were posting for 5 different locations, and you understand that there's a web of connectivity. There's a lot of moving pieces for the way that at the end of the day, it's organized crime. But there have been very many effective ways that we've addressed this issue. And we cannot, I must stress, we cannot just address it in one realm and in one way because we need to surround the issue specifically with illicit massage businesses. So one thing that we found very simple, very effective, is to use landowners. All of these places are being leased out. And so if landowners, if realtors, commercial property managers would have a zero tolerance policy for places that were selling sex, and almost all of them are connected with sex trafficking, would just kick them out. You have the right within lease law to cut the lease if they're operating an illegal business on your property, especially if it's like a residential property. That happens in rental homes as well. Yeah,
so that whole area that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, what we used to call the 5806 area, where there are 10 brothels, 3 blocks, how many brothels are still operating?
1.
And so how did that happen? Well,
a lot of things, but operating with landowners, praying, and just like literally embracing the kingdom of God and releasing it into a region, which takes time. But connecting with landowners, connecting with the community outcry is so important. So
critical.
So important. Have you ever met an angry mother that wants a stop sign on her street corner? Like, it's a beautiful thing what you can accomplish with some voices, loud voices, passionate voices. So you and your community can say, this place is selling sex. We can tell, here's the reasons. And Elijah Rising has assisted many people in gathering that evidence to take to their local communities, their HOAs, whatever that means, whoever is in your area, and you can get it shut down that way. And people say, well, it's just going to pop up somewhere else. But it's making it more difficult. And so if all of our communities, we empower all the communities of all sides to stand up and say, not here, it's not going to happen. It's a good way that we can do that. Then we also have an amazing program coming out of Love People Not Pixels called How to Shut Down a Brothel, which, I'm just kind of throwing out information at you. They're giving you a step-by-step guide, partnership, and even their expertise and their voice in getting that done. Yeah.
Episode 2 of the Elijah Rising podcast is an interview with Joe Madison, the director of Love People Not Pixels, and he talks more about how to shut down a brothel there. But you can also just visit their website and find out more about it. So just a little plug for them. We love you guys. We love you, Joe. And they really are. They are shutting down brothels at the like the legislative level, the community level, the city council level, wherever, whoever has the power to influence that.
And he started by taking an Elijah Rising van tour, and he got aware. But the most important thing that you must do is when people see how easily it is to access women who've been trafficked, like they're right there, they're not hidden, they're not locked away. There tends to be a lot of judgment of women who've been trafficked. They say, well, why don't they just leave? They obviously aren't in that bad of shape. It's not that bad of a situation if they're not, desperate to get out. Or why don't Elijah Rising, why don't we just get them out and take them?
Just take them if we know where they are.
And that is something that I had to walk through.
Yeah.
I found myself frustrated. I found myself hopeless, feeling like I see these women week after week and I don't know how to leave. There's a huge, obviously, cultural barrier for me personally because most of the women that we're seeing speak Mandarin, they're speaking Korean or Thai, and I can't connect. I mean, I might be able to say a few words, but I really can't connect culturally and with language.
Sure.
But what I realized was that looking at the Gospels and the way that the Lord loves people, that I encountered this need of like, rescue culture sometimes is about us being okay. When you see a problem that you're not connected to the human suffering and the reality of that problem, you want to solve that problem. But these are people, these are humans, and these are complex issues. And just because of money, influence, and effort, we can't just walk in and decide that we're going to end a global and like complicated issue in a moment. But we can sow in the most precious thing, which is our love, our compassion, and our empathy. And I think we really, especially people who are Christians, when you spend these time, we had these coffees and these moments, we got to experience really what sharing in the suffering of the Lord, going home every night and knowing that she was still being trafficked. And do I want to go back and face again the hardship of what she was going through? Not that it's even that big of a deal for me, but it was still painful.
Right.
And that going back and the reality, like actually facing and processing the reality of human pain in the midst of a good God. It's a difficult thing, but I've seen it be done so well. Jen Fisher, she's one of our amazing volunteers. And I almost feel weird calling her a volunteer. She's an abolitionist. She's a leader in the movement. She's amazing. Who speaks Mandarin. And we have videos of her in the middle of these illicit massage businesses, just like Is that coming up on the thing? Okay.
Makes me want to get an ice cream, though.
I know. I'm like, can we chase that down? No.
Jen Fisher.
Ready? Yeah. Break. We have these videos of her inside of illicit massage businesses in the back actually leading Bible study. And there's this one video, we can't share because we want to protect the identity of this woman, but where this woman's reading 1 John in Mandarin, and she's experiencing the truth of the gospel. She hasn't left that situation, but she's hearing about the love of God from someone who loves her, sharing a meal on break in between being trafficked. And I can't really get into how we were able to do that. We're not just, we've been able to build relationships where some traffickers tolerate our volunteers because we're not posing any threat, danger. We go as a blessing when we go to anyone. We act kind and nice to anyone who we see.
I've been in some of these establishments with Jen on intervention, and because she speaks Mandarin and fluently, excellently, she's always complimented on like, your Mandarin is so amazing. They will tell her like, whoa. She's able to connect at this personal level. And so one way that you can get involved is if you speak Mandarin, Thai, Korean, we need you.
We desperately need you.
We want your help. But one thing that stands out to me about that is she sees individual human beings in those brothels. I think it's so easy sometimes for us in this work, especially for us who are on staff. I mean, we are faced with this every single day. But even for some people who might just be casual observers of the work to end trafficking, or just maybe you've not been on intervention yet, or you care about the issue, but you're just at a different exposure level. is I think the conversation, because we keep having it, can easily make us think that we just overgeneralize the population. We overgeneralize all those who are being trafficked as just those people who are being trafficked. But time and time again, I'm reminded, and you're reminding me of this right now, Sam. Time and time again, I'm reminded, like, no, these are individual human beings, each very uniquely made in the image of God, with their own backstory, their own circumstances, their own trauma, their own history, their own past, their own hopes, their own futures,
their own culture, their own background.
It's just so like. And so I just want to reiterate here again that it's like what we're talking about is a big global issue. It is a macro issue, but where the real breakthrough happens is in the micro one-on-one relationships that you're talking about, taking hot coffee and sitting on a couch with an individual woman and maybe only knowing 2 words in her heart language and just trying to connect.
Yeah. And we've been critiqued. I've done trainings because my whole bit was like, I need the church to leave the church and be inside of strip clubs, brothels, and other illicit places.
Right.
Like Jesus, you know,
like Jesus.
And not everybody's called to that. I get it. Some people are faithful givers. Some people are this way, that way. Like, I don't judge
Everybody
anymore.
has a role to play.
Yeah. And I used to be like, oh my God, everybody, but realizing that we're all parts of the body. Right.
Right.
And people critique, they said, well, if you're just going to go and if I'm just supposed to go and talk to this woman, like I'm not ending sex trafficking. And there's some important place of hunger left in that person who wants justice, because we have to burn the candle at both ends. We have to address the macro issues of sex trafficking legislation, the underlying issues of long-term misogyny, racism, poverty, awareness, those things. And then we have to go after the one like Christ. Mm-hmm. And we have to pray to God that he brings down the principalities and structures and brings the kingdom and revival to send the people. So this issue, we never want to overgeneralize it. You're absolutely right to say like, well, this is the solution. This is the thing. This is the only piece. But instead be like, who are you? Yeah. Who are you in the body of Christ with your giftings, with your specific, like, I think that harassment is a spiritual gift for some of the people that go and advocate for these bills, and they call their representatives and they call their local authorities. They call the churches. They say, we need to talk about that. Is a spiritual gift. Like, God bless you for you being like, cry aloud, spare not. Like, that is important. And then there's people who are so pastoral, like, who are each of us in the face of this evil? And I think that's how we address it. And so that's kind of a big issue, not really focusing on how sex trafficking works, but
it's the solution question, right? I mean, it's like, this is how it's ended. It's ended at big scale levels, but also at one human face, life being one person at a time. Exits only occur one person at a time. Right? Yeah. It's only one phone call at a time, one transportation at a time. Mm-hmm. And so it's so critical to just remember that what we do on intervention, the reason why we do intervention is to make that relational connection and to say, hey, do you need help? Yeah. And can I pray for you?
Yeah. And to learn, and we're learning all the time. I did a lot of intervention in the beginning, but honestly, I tell every intervention leader who really rises up and I see like, man, you're really good at this or you're really gifted. Mm-hmm. I say, look, take my rule book and throw it out, other than like the really important safety things, the legal things of like, this is how we do this, this, and this. But other than that, like the way that we go in, the way that we talk, because we're always learning. For example, like we used to take like little scriptures into the massage parlor or illicit massage business that had the number 4 in them. Mm-hmm. And we realized that the 4 in Mandarin characters means death. And that was literally, and we had little black gift bags, which that color meant death. And so it was no cultural understanding. So, I mean,
now we take a lot of red with us.
We take a lot of red. Good luck. We never used the letter 4. And we listen to people who understand their culture, their background, and let them, in as much as possible, find people who understand and let them take the lead. Because, there's a lot we could say there, but it's just important to like always be like, Lord, how can we make it better? How can we do this more efficiently with that like attention to the one? Yeah. Because the sex industry is constantly changing, it is constantly evolving, and we have to be flexible, movable. And that's why I think it's going to keep our ministry going as far as the outreach, the intervention, the ground level frontline work that we're known for.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking for a way to get involved, if you've been impacted by this episode or by other episodes, I'm feeling that I should just recommend take a van tour. We are currently recording in the midst of a global pandemic, and van tours aren't operating at this moment of recording, but you might be listening in 6 months from now and a year from now. And at that point, hopefully, we will have van tours operating and intervention operating normally again. So I want to encourage you to take an awareness van tour through Elijah Rising, through our website, and go on the website and sign up for one, because it's going to continue this conversation, and you'll see maybe in your own neighborhood what this looks like and where it's occurring, and get a little bit more education and awareness about the issue as a whole. And then also intervention, like join us for outreach. And you can go to the website to sign up for that as well. We do intervention and outreach all over the city. Every Friday night, all over the greater Houston area in different places. So join us. Also, I want to mention the Museum of Modern Day Slavery. There's a couple of installments actually about how this specific model works with the illicit massage businesses, and some of the history of the locations Sam has been discussing.
There's pictures inside that I took while doing, afterwards.
Yeah.
When those places were raided.
So visit the museum, and then also I just point you to our website. You want to say one more thing?
I just wanted to say, that's a really great shirt that you're wearing. What does it say?
It says, "Strong men support strong women." I'm really excited about this shirt. I put this shirt on and I said, I think this might be my new favorite t-shirt. And so if you're just listening to the podcast, you should definitely go to YouTube and check it out, because you can see it. There it is. And
you can buy it today at shop.elijahrising.org.
There it is. Visit our store, visit online, buy online, also candles, etc., all sorts of good stuff.
We have lots of great stuff. Just know that our goods are made by women, but for all. We have great men's products, dad products, friend products, mom products, everything. Kids products. We have kids tees.
All sorts of good stuff.
To support the employment of women who've survived human trafficking.
Yeah. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Follow us on social media. Share, subscribe to the podcast, and send us your feedback. What do you want to know? What do you want us to talk about? Who do you want to see on the podcast? What questions do you have? Comment, let us know, give us feedback. Follow us on social media. Do all the things. We love you. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Elijah Rising podcast.